Hello, everyone, and welcome to Boris Effects Virtual NAB Live. Hello, everyone. I am Brian Fox, once again with you. Been with you all day today. So today we have an exciting presentation. John Dickinson, newest member of the Boris Effects family, is going to show us particle illusion, some of the new improvements in Continuum 2020.5, specifically the new forces feature. Really cool stuff. We have assembled an all-star panel to help us out. Let's kick it off with Peter McAuliffe. Say hello, Peter.
Hey guys, how are you doing today?
Peter
Staying safe, I
McAuliffe.
hope.
Hell yeah. Peter McAuliffe is the senior product manager for Continuum. Pete, how long have you been with Boris Effects?
Oh gosh, probably too long.
Forever.
It's been over 20 years. I'm hoping for another 20. So there you go.
Pete is a legend in the plugin industry, and happy to have him with us. Alan Lawrence, say hello, Alan.
Hi.
If you guys don't know, Alan actually created particle illusion in the 60s.
He's particle illusion's dad, right?
1860s, right?
1860s. Yeah, he was on an abacus.
Punch cards.
Punch cards, yes.
Yeah.
Also, we have Kevin P McAuliffe joining us. Say hello, Kevin.
Hello, Brian. How are you?
Good to see you, my friend. Is that a Raptors
good
hat
to
on?
see you. That is a Raptors 905 G League hat. There you go.
Let me get.
Here we go.
Come on.
Here we go.
Come on.
We were still leading before the season was temporarily ended. So we'll see what we see.
Yeah. No, I'm nodding like I know what that is.
Yeah. Kevin, who won last year?
That was still Toronto. Thank you very much.
Touche.
Just thought I'd give you that.
Touche. And Vin Morales with us as well. Vin is senior product specialist for Boris Effects. Say hello, Vin.
Hey guys, how's it going?
You guys know Vin from his tutorials and his smooth dulcet tones.
Yes. Hello.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to John. But before I do, I would be remiss to mention the Boris Effects NAB sale is on right now. That is 50% off brand new perpetual multi-product bundles and 25% off everything else. So if you guys are looking to upgrade Continuum, get the latest version, now is the time, 25% off. If you're looking to get a new seat of Sapphire and Continuum, or a seat of Continuum Mocha Pro, or Silhouette Paint and Continuum. Actually, I don't even know if that's a thing, but apparently I'm just making it up.
It is now.
It is now, right? So 50% off the multi-product bundles, 25% off everything else. During today's live stream, we are going to be giving away a ton of prizes. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we're giving away over $50,000 worth. Today, we've already given away a seat of Cinema 4D, a seat of Nuke, a seat of Media Composer. We've given away an Insta360 camera, and we're going to keep it going today. So the way to enter is to like, comment, or share. So go ahead and hit that like button, hit that, leave us a comment, say hello. Our coworker Jessie, who is the woman behind the throne up here, who is making it all happen behind the scenes. She is randomly selecting winners from all our social channels. So she is selecting from YouTube, from Facebook, from Twitter, and from Twitch, right? So go ahead and make sure you leave a comment, and you can be entered to win one of the amazing prizes today. Let's see what we're giving away today. We're going to be giving away a business subscription and music bed, which is an amazing music service. So that's good for 50 employees. We're giving away a 1-year subscription to Adobe Creative Cloud, which is really awesome. We're giving away the full Boris Effects bundle, so Sapphire, Continuum, and Mocha Pro. We're giving away a 1-year sub to Silhouette and a 1-year sub to the new Silhouette Paint plugin. So some really cool prizes. So definitely go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and share to enter. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to John, my friend. Good morning. Have you had breakfast?
Good morning, Brian. Yes, I had a little bit of sleep. It's just after 7 a.m. here, which is better than 6 a.m., those Friday morning meetings, man.
Yes, sir. Well, we're happy to have you here. Happy for you to get up early in the morning and show us some particle illusion.
Fantastic. Well, I'm just about to share my screen.
Let me go ahead and play your clip too.
Okay, so I'm sharing my screen.
Cool.
Is your is yours playing back, Brian?
Yep, I am playing the I'm playing the flow clip right now.
Okay, so yeah, we're going to be talking about specifically particle illusion today in Continuum 2020.5. We're going to look at the new force features. And anyone who knows me will know that when I'm demoing something, I've definitely got to get in there and build something real, something that a finished look. And this is what I've done here with this look for flow. So what I want to do is I'm going to jump into particle illusion and just show you the new force features. And then we're going to break this look down. We're going to go right down to the base of it, right down to the bottom when we're going to work up. And it should take about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And then we can have some questions afterwards. So let me just jump straight in to number 1 here. I've broken down the presentation into compositions just to make it easier for me. And I've just I've pre-rendered some of these to make it easier to play it back as well. So here I am in comp number 1, and I have particle illusion applied. I'm just going to come over to my effect control panel and click on Launch Particle Illusion. Okay, so here we are in particle illusion. And if I just click the play button, you've got just a simple particle simulation, just some sparticles. Sparticles, yeah. That sounds, sparticles, that's actually a pretty good name, isn't it? Sparkles. It's a mix of Spartacus and particles. Now, prior to this version of particle illusion, we had forces, but we only had one force. If I come up here to the top and click on force, and then click here in the stage, it's going to double click to bring that back to 0. If I grab that force and just move it over the particles, you can see it pushes them in the direction of the arrow. And I can do things like change the angle, and that will change the direction of these. And this has been useful. I could duplicate the force and I could change the direction and I could get a somewhat organic look to this. But 2020.5 introduces new types. And I'm just going to bring this back to 0. The first type is the grid type. So just click there and choose grid. Watch what happens over here. I'm just going to zoom in. You can see that it's broken that force up into a grid of boxes, like mini forces, if you like, and they've all got their own direction arrow. And you may have noticed that nothing actually changed with the particles. But check this out. I've got new, when I choose grid, I've got these new options down here. And if I choose to change strength variation, you can see the particles are going to move at different velocities. And if I change the direction variation, look at the arrows. They're all just changing into different directions. So this is really nice. We can instantly get a really nice organic look just by moving the grid over the emitter. And it changes it quite dramatically. Let me just play that back. So you can see before we just had them shooting out to the right, but now we've got them shooting out in all directions, which is really good. Something that particle illusion has never had. And it's so great to see brand new features in such an established particle generator. So that's the first particle type, first force type, excuse me. We have another new force type, which is the point force. I'm just going to disable that one and just play this back a little bit. Come back up to force and click, and then come down and click in my scene. And once again, come down to type and choose point. Okay, so point's slightly different. With point, the particles are attracted to the point center point. And this radius here, this is kind of like a fall off if you've used fall off before. If I just move this, let me just double click to bring it back to 0. If I move this, you can see they're being attracted towards the center of the point. If I just increase the strength, they get like sucked into a black hole. And these are good for pushing the, I just added one there. These are good for pushing and the particles around and changing their flow, controlling their direction. And obviously I can use multiple forces as well. One nice thing you can do is you can change the strength to a negative value, and that will repulse the particles. So you can use these forces, grid, and just the point and the regular force in combination to create some really interesting looks. And that's what we're going to have a look at now. So I'm just going to click cancel there. come back into After Effects. I'm just going to open up number 2. Now, this has already been pre-rendered, and that's just something to keep in mind as well. When you're working with a lot of particles and a lot of forces, it actually can pay to pre-render that. And Particle Illusion 2020.5 actually has ProRes rendering built in. So that's a really nice feature as well. So I just rendered this out to ProRes, and I'm just pressing to do a preview there, and I get an instant preview because I've pre-rendered this. So you can see how these particles are flowing around really quite naturally. And this setup was done by our wonderful Ben Brownlee. I just grabbed it and just ran with it to create this sort of fiery look. So let me just turn off that pre-render or pre-comp, and let's just jump into here. So you can see when I click on Launch Particle Illusion that the particles are being generated from the text. And that's because I've used a preset, and I've got to remember what that preset name is. I come over to my emitters here, my search dialog, my search box, excuse me, and type in logo burst. Here we go. So this whole look was based on this logo burst preset. If I just click in here, you can see you apply it to your layer and it will burst the particles outwards. So that's the base for this. And let me just turn that off. I'm going to just twirl these different forces up just for a moment and come up to the emitter. If I press play, you see nothing happens. The text is actually generating particles. You may be able to see that over the screen, over the screen share. It's just kind of twinkling at the moment. What we've got for the emitter, we've got velocity set to 0. And so the particles aren't moving outwards. All of the movement from the particles is coming from the forces, which I'll turn on in a moment. The other thing to point out here with the particles is we have this nice sort of fiery gradient, and this is giving the color for the particles. And we're sampling from a full gradient at the moment. So if I come in and turn on some of these forces, the first one is grid 1. So I'll just click on the hamburger menu and choose enable. And you can see this one actually has some position keyframes I didn't mention before, but you can obviously animate forces, and that will change their look from as if you've just had them stationary. So if I just play that back, you can see that's shooting those particles up towards the left. You can see the arrows are all pointing up towards the top left. So that's a good start. That gets the particles moving. The power comes when we start combining forces. So if I just come back to my list here and turn on grid 2, let's enable that one. That one's sitting above. And you can see for this one, the arrows are pointing to the right. So if I play that back now, the first force pushes them up and the second force pushes them to the right. So it's really nice. You can just move the forces around in your scene here and control the direction of the particles. Let me turn on grid 3. Just enable that one. So once again, this is stacked up above. Just zoom in here. And you can see that this is now pushing them down to the bottom left. So if I play that back, we're starting to get more of a kind of flame movement to these. And lastly, there's the point emitter. If I just enable that one, you can see this is being animated backwards and forwards across to push and pull the particles towards its center point. So we get this clumping of particles as the point moves left and right across, which is really nice. It's quite a nice way to work. You wouldn't want to go in and just drop forces in willy-nilly. You'd want to put your first force in, get that working how you want it, then add your next force and your next force and build it up step by step. That's a really nice look. So that's the base for this look. Just going to click apply. And once again, just turn back on my proxy there and just play that back. So just a really nice base for this fiery look. Okay, I'm going to go into comp 3 here. Now, particle illusion has built-in glow parameters. So if I just click on the text here and come down, you can see under particle properties, there's an option for glow on. I'm just going to check that. Great to have built-in glow because, I mean, what particle doesn't benefit from a little bit of glow? I've gone in and adjusted the intensity and the threshold, and that's just giving me some really nice glow on those particles out of the box. But I also wanted a much softer glow on top of this, so I've actually used an adjustment layer, and here I've used BCC Fast Film Glow, a really nice, soft, fast glow, which I use all the time in my projects. Let me just turn that on, and you'll see that it will give me just a big, soft glow around the text and the particles. Let's turn it off again, just like that. You never really, in the work that I do, I never really get the look I want necessarily with one glow. I'm always combining, just putting one glow in and changing the radius to make it really hot, and then putting another glow in and making it really wide radius and making it softer. And that way you can get a much more realistic look. Okay, so remember, I broke these up just for the purposes of demonstration, but that was the next thing I did in my, you can see in my final here. You can see all of the comps are all together. That's how it obviously would work, but just for the sake of demonstration, I've just broken it up. Let's go to number 4. Okay, so particle illusion has built-in motion blur, and I'm going to just turn the glow off for a moment, just a big glow, and let's just turn on that motion blur. So with the text selected, I'm using After Effects' motion blur here, but it has its own built-in motion blur. I'm going to turn that on. It's just going to take a moment to redraw here. We should see the particles just change. There we go. So that looks pretty good, and the motion blur is very good. Particles can really benefit, especially fast-moving particles can really benefit from motion blur. But I wanted to emulate fire, so just using motion blur in this wasn't going to cut it. I'm just going to turn that off. So what I decided to use was vector blur, and vector blur is a little different from other blurs. With vector blur, you can use a blur map or a vector map, and here I've used a noise map. So if we come down to the noise map and double click, in here I've used fractal noise, and I've got a few layers in here. Let me just preview this. So I've got one fractal noise layer, just setting some transform keyframes just to move it vertically. And also I think I've used a little time expression. If I press E on the keyboard twice, it's going to reveal my expressions. And I've just used a time expression, just multiplied by that 300 by 300. And that's just making this fractal evolve. So this particular fractal dynamic progression is really good. You can already see that it gives you a kind of a smoky, fiery look. But that wasn't quite enough. I wanted to kind of make a combination of layers that looked a little more like fire might look. And this, you might look at it and think, ooh, that doesn't look like fire. But hey, you know, this is my project, and this is how I think fire looks. So let's turn on the next layer, and you can see it's the same thing, but I've just changed the vertical scale of the fractal noise, and I've just used a soft mask just to blend that. So I thought maybe the fire is more sort of clumped and at the bottom, and then starts to sort of change to a taller flame at the top. So this is going to be controlling the vector blur. So that's the base, and on top of that we have this curl layer. Now I only just started using the 2020 version before I got to know these 2020.5, and 2020 of Continuum introduced a brand new curl plugin, and I really like it. Take a look at this. If I just turn the effect on, let's just see, why aren't we seeing that? Oh, I've got to turn the layer on. So curl literally adds little curl displacements, and you can see I've actually used masks to control where those are. I'm just going to turn those masks off going to say none. So this is a really nice displacement that I haven't seen before, and I thought that's really quite effective for fire, and I'm going to show you how I use it for smoke in a moment. But that's a really pretty displacement effect. Love it. But I wanted to control where it was. I didn't want it everywhere, so I just added a few masks and just moved those masks around just to control where. And I could animate those masks as well, but I didn't want it to be everywhere because I wanted the fire to sort of come upwards and then do a little curl. And once again, I've also used this for smoke, and I'll show you that in a moment. So you could just use the standard fractal noise effect and go, okay, I've got my vector map, I've got my displacement map, but combining them together allows you to zero in more on the look that you want. So if we come back to 04, come up to vector blur, and just turn that on. Just let that do its thing for a moment. It's going to click none. You can see it blows out to yellow at the very beginning of the comp because the text is not, the particles aren't actually moving, and the glow is blowing out. That's why I've got this little start marker here. Okay, so vector blur, you can see it's kind of broken it up. But I was using a vector map for mine, so I'm going to choose noise map, and look at that. See how that's now controlling the vector blur? It's really nice. It's sort of bunched up down the bottom, and it starts to spread out towards the top, which is what you'd expect. You'd expect it to, I guess, fire would be, I'm not sure of the term, but it would be different down in here where it's burning, and up here would be different, I guess, as wind and things affect it.
Hey, John.
Yes.
Quick question there for you. This is Peter. I just wanted to mention that was really clever use of those individual mask shapes to control the vector blur. I really like that, and that's not something that one would ordinarily think of when just applying a filter to an effect, is that you can actually mask it back and produce these really nice, organic, smooth-looking results. So I just want to say, nice one on that.
Yeah, good. Thank you. It's great to go in there and be able to just to customize it. I knew what I wanted to look, and trust me, I went into this noise map and I did it on one day and thought that looks really good. I came back the next day and go, that doesn't look like fire. So I go in and I adjust it some more, and then I put it down, come back the next day, what was I thinking? And I go in and adjust it some more, and I'd probably pick this up in a month's time and go, man, what was I thinking?
That's right. So all that back and forth.
I'm sure we've all done that.
Of course.
But the funny thing is, that's one of the fun things about motion graphics and visual effects, isn't it? Going in there and really getting in and trying to zero in on a look, create something that you think. And when you do that, and when you play it back and you go, man, that looks really good. It gives you that little goosebump. I got them right now. Can you believe it?
Nice.
Little goosebumps, just from being creative. And obviously that's why I've been able to do this for 25 years.
Yeah, it's a great buzz.
So use noise maps. Remember, noise maps don't necessarily have to be used for vector blur. They can be used for things like displacement and all kinds of things, which we're going to look at in a sec.
Lava flows.
Lava flows, yeah, totally. So let me just turn on that proxy and just give that a little quick preview. A little RAM preview here. I'm in number 4, sorry. So that's why it's so slow. Remember I talked about pre-rendering those particles? So you can see it's not perfect, but it definitely looks a lot more organic and a lot more natural than as if I just used motion blur on those particles. It looks really quite irregular. And you could go in and you can, I don't know if you can see some of those twirls in there, but those curls. You could go in and you could adjust that noise map even more. But I thought that's quite a good base to that. And look at those, that point emitter, that point force moving backwards and forwards. You know how the fire does that? It swirls around itself, and that's all done by using that, animating that point emitter, the point force, backwards and forwards. It's really nice. So let's go into number 5. So you could have looked at that and thought, yeah, that's fine, done, send it out. Client loves it, done. It's never enough for me. This is where I get into trouble. So I just wanted to take it a little further. How can I make it look even more realistic? So the first thing I did was I thought, well, all of the particles are being affected by vector blur. And I might just come back to, it's just reminded me of something. I'll come back to 4 for a second. look, have a look up here. See how there's a mask on here? What I actually did was I masked out the vector blur layer with a big soft mask. If you see, there's a big feather on there, a massive feather on there. So only the area inside the mask is being affected by the vector blur. And as particles move outside the mask, they are not affected. So they look more like embers, which is really nice. So they're coming up to the top of the flame, and see as they move out, they break up, which is nice. So just using a mask to control where that vector blur is. And I thought that was a really nice way to sort of add an ember look, but I wanted more embers coming from down here and more embers intermingled, mixed with the flames. So that's why I added a new flow layer. So all I've done is I've just duplicated my text layer, and I've just named it embers. Over here in particle illusion, in the effect control panel, if I twirl down particle properties, you can see I can adjust various sort of parameters for the particle emitter. And here I've reduced this, the number. So if I just increase that, you'll see getting back to where we were with the other text layer. But I've just reduced that right down. And if I just play that back, you can see we're getting the particles moving in a similar way. And I could actually even change the random seed for this so they move slightly differently. And if I lay that over the top of everything else, we can see, and it probably won't be able to see it until I actually play it back. I'll just turn on the proxy and just play that back. So we're just getting a little bit of the embers coming over the top, and it just gives it a more realistic look. Let me just turn that off again and turn these embers off and turn them on again. If I turn them on and off, you can see the difference. See that? So those ones aren't affected by the vector blur, and it just comping those on top, I felt made that feel a little more like you've got embers coming up through the flames, just like that. So that was
fit and finish, huh?
Yeah. This is, I think once you've got the majority of a look done, this is all the fun stuff. All the hard, heavy lifting is being done. This is going in and throwing a bunch of effects on it and tweaking, and then taking all those effects off because they look terrible, and throwing some more effects and tweaking until you get the look that you want, until it's something you can send out that you're happy with, at least for now. Okay, so that's the embers. Let's go into number 6. So here we're actually going in and we're giving it even a more refined look. I'm adding some glows to come back to a point where we can see it. Now, obviously, it looks like the whole thing is completely on fire. If this was actually made of timber or something, you definitely see some of the wood. You wouldn't see everything completely enveloped in flames. So to fix that, I've taken the text and I've removed particle illusion, and I've filled it with a black and just laid it on top, just like that. And that at least helps, but obviously the fire is right behind it. And there's a nice little trick, and a lot of you might already know that. If you use an adjustment layer with a glow on top, glow applied on top of everything else, here I've got BCC Fast Film Glow with a deep red. If that's on top of everything else and I turn that on, that glow will start to wrap the pixels behind the text around the text, and it starts to help the text feel integrated. You can see with that deep red, that really helps. So that's got quite a high radius, but I've used another glow on top. I love my adjustment layers. And this one's just a very pale orange. And this has got a lower radius. And this is making it even brighter. So that definitely helps, but the way to make this really shine is by using masks. Let me just isolate the text here and just turn on the checkerboard. I'm going to just turn on my masks one by one, or turn on the main one. So for this one, I want to use subtract. This is this green one, this big green mask. I'm just going to, actually, I think I used add. 1 sec. I got to check that I make sure I show you correctly on this one. Yeah, this one's set to add. Just like that. Let me just unsolo that and turn off the. So now you can see how by using that mask, it looks like the bottom of the text is now in flames. Let me turn it off again. Just like that. So that's masking out that text. And it feels like it's sitting behind, which is really nice. But I wanted to continue that in different points on the text. So I've just used other masks, just distribute them around, but I've set that to subtract. So I'm subtracting from this masked area. So if I click on subtract, you can see that now this is really nice. It feels like parts of the text are on fire. Really nice. Let me just preview that. That's really, I thought when I saw that, I thought, wow, that's starting to look really good. See how it really feels like parts of the text are on fire? See, look how this is also sort of being eroded here. This was something I did quite late. I'd already finished everything and I'd rendered it out, and I thought the text needed a bit of extra work. So for that, I used BCC Grunge. Let me just turn off that proxy and just come back to the text here. Just solo that, turn on my checkerboard. So with BCC Grunge, a great little tool in Continuum for just grunging things up. I've used it really subtly here. You can see the majority of things are all turned off. All I've done is turned on erosion. And who doesn't like to grunge things up? I've just used one of the textures, this one here, just subtle grunge. And I've used that as the map for my erosion. So if I turn the erosion off, see, it's very subtle. There's not much going on. I didn't want to erode the whole thing. Obviously, you could animate this over time to erode the whole thing, but just very subtle. And that just breaks the text up, which is really nice. But as soon as I put those masks on top of that layer of text, and obviously I can move these around. Let me just turn off and unsolo everything. I can move these masks around and I can add more. And if I change the text, of course, I can move these. Just put this one over here. And that's a pretty strong one. So the tip of that's on fire. And I could bring something down here. And this is where I just play around. You just grab the mask, move it around, do what you think looks good. So that's really nice. That little tip is on fire now, which is great.
Those little flourishes, man, really sell it. That little bit of erosion and wrapping the fire really takes it from
totally, Brian.
Like an A to an A+.
Yeah, I think that makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Really does.
Let me just preview that again.
Isn't
that nice?
That's
so
look at how those particles and that vector blur
love it
is affecting that text. It really, to me, it doesn't look 100% realistic, but it moves in the way flame. I guess it's stylized flames, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You look at this and you don't think. The first thing you think is fire, and that's what you want. You want the people to think something's on fire, even if it's not 100% accurate. But remember, the base of this is these particles. Yep. It's the way that particle illusion forces are moving these particles around. If they weren't doing that, then I don't really have anything. Fire moves in a certain way, which is really nice. So let's just go through, and I want to come into number 7 now. And this is really finishing now. I had the look I wanted. I wanted to just add a couple more things just to really finish this look. So the first thing I did was I used the really great BCC reflection effect that was introduced in BCC 2020. And if I turn that layer on, this is really nice. It just adds a reflection below the text. But what really sold it for me was this ripple setting. Let me just come into the BCC reflection. Actually, a fast way to find what I want is just to type it in up here, RIPPLE. There we go. So ripple, and I just need to give myself some space. So if I make ripple amount 0, great, we've got a reflection, which is okay. But having that ripple in there is really nice. It feels like this is on some sort of pontoon in the middle of a lake, and I haven't had to do anything. And the ripple's animated. I can change the speed and the scale. A really nice little continuum effect just to finish this. And out of the box, just took me a few seconds to do that. And what fire look wouldn't be finished without some sort of heat haze, of course, because this is obviously some inferno. So you'd see some kind of overall distortion. So if I just turn on this adjustment layer for heat haze, I've used BCC displacement map. And down here for the displacement map, I've chosen the same noise map. So we're using the same noise map that I used to adjust, to control the vector blur for the flames. I'm using that for displacement. So if I just turn that on, you'll see how it bends everything below it like that. And let me just turn on the proxy here and just preview that. See that? So it's, in heat haze, you do it to taste. You'd have, obviously, if it was really hot, you'd have a lot of distortion. But I think that really helps as well, having that heat haze on top, because this is a really, this is a classic thing. Having a displacement map with a map, some sort of fractal noise map to create heat haze is really classic technique. So we've got our heat haze. We've also got a little bit of ash that is falling in the foreground. This is one of the last things that I added to it. We just click on this layer and click on particle illusion. I just grabbed one of the presets that I created that's in Continuum just for dust floaties. And this is really small. If I just try and zoom in here, you can see them. I just adjusted this preset. So I've just got a little bit of ash falling out of the sky in the foreground. There's not much there. It's really subtle, but just a few little particles, quite hard to see. You wouldn't want too much, and it wanted to move in a very, in a very specific way. It was very easy to adjust that preset. And the good thing about something like this is that it gives you something in the foreground. You're always wanting to create depth with these kind of looks. You can just see it here, a little bit of ash there. And I think I might have added a little bit of, BCC fast lens blur, because this is in the foreground. Just turn that off and on again. You can see how that's just giving that a little bit of lens blur. And we got a little bit of ash falling in the foreground. And lastly, I said that was the last thing, but of course it's not. I already told you that.
One more
Someone
thing.
said, well, Ben said, wouldn't it be good if you added some smoke? And I thought, nah, it doesn't need it. And I pushed back, in my head. And then when I was preparing this, I thought, well, maybe we could look at some smoke. And obviously, I could use particle illusion. There's some unbelievable smoke in there, but I wanted to do it the hard way. It wasn't hard. I literally used the same noise map, and I've added some smoke behind. Let me just see if I can preview that. Here we go. So this is using. I used the same noise map with vector blur on the smoke. So I've used turbulent noise, and I've got it just moving upwards. Turbulent noise, obviously, fractal noise is classic for smoke. So I've got that just moving upwards. It's the same base layer that I used for the noise map, the original noise map, but I've used vector blur, and I'm using the original noise map to blur that. So now we've got the smoke moving upwards, but then we've got those curls and things in there. You know how smoke curls? So that looks really quite realistic. So we've got it moving in a similar way to the way the fire moves. It's a little slow to preview. This is the kind of stuff that you want to pre-render, and just let that play back. So let's see those little. Hopefully you can see it there. You get those little curls in there, which is really quite nice. So that doesn't look too much like. It looks a lot like smoke. It's not too unconvincing. So that just sits in there, and if I just come back to the final here and just play that from there, trying to make that full frame. So I'll see a little bit of smoke in the background. I could have gone in and tried to find a particle illusion preset that kind of matched this, but because I already had that noise map and I already had it all set up and it was moving at the right kind of speed, I decided just to put that in. And you can see how those little bits of ash are falling in the foreground. Just something a little bit extra to add to that. And before I finish, I just wanted to obviously make clear that this is a fair bit of work to set this up. It took a few hours to do this. What if the client changed the text? Well, of course, if you work the way I work, you pre-compose the text and it's separate. So all I got to do is just change the text. If I could spell. That was a mistake. I bumped my keyboard. I really can't spell. Okay, so look. Caps lock off and watch that change. Okay.
Cool.
So,
fantastic.
And what I really liked about that was that all of my masks appeared to be in the right place. Remember, I put those masks on the text, and I could go in, well, obviously, and click on that layer and move those masks around, but just happy accident, they just happened to be in the right place. But I think that looks terrific, doesn't it? So if you wanted to go and do different versions for different supers for your promo, full frame supers, obviously just change the text for each one, and maybe go in and change the random seed of certain things so it moves slightly differently. You could also go into particle illusion and change the forces a little bit, and that's what we end up with, that really nice flaming text look. So that's the presentation. Let's talk a little bit about it, and if you have any questions.
Beautiful.
Once again, I explained it so well that no one's got any questions.
Beautiful work.
We're all dumbfounded, John. That was just so
No, but I mean, one thing that I'll say, and one thing that I always like, about tutorials like this is that, whether you're going to create something like fire or not, the one thing that I saw in here that I totally loved was the use of grunge to disintegrate the text. Because for me, I'm doing stuff all the time. I do work language versioning of Hollywood commercials and trailers, and they're always taking their text and making it, and I call it the rough and edges look, because that's kind of like the common go-to effect that you're always using to kind of break the edges down. But you see right there, grunge has a fantastic feature for you to get in it and to disintegrate whatever you apply it to, in this case, text, which is super quick. And it's one of those things where you would completely overlook it if you didn't know that it was there.
Yeah, totally. And I love it with BCC Grunge that it has a lot of different options, but I can just turn on the ones I want.
Yeah, totally.
And I only wanted that erosion, and I literally went through with BCC Grunge. I went through all of these images. If I just turn this off, actually come back to the text, and I use the texture. You can see I turned use texture off. So I didn't want to use the texture. And I didn't want to have that visible, but I just wanted to use its grayscale values. And that's the actual texture that I used. You can see how that's the black areas are the bits that eat away at that. It just, you can see that. So you can choose to use the texture and have it visible. And that one completely destroyed it. Or you can choose to turn it off. In my case, I decided I didn't want to see the texture. I just wanted to use its grayscale values, which is really nice.
And you can actually use any texture in there, John. You can have your own textures, right? And they can be
you've got a list here, but you can drop your own in that folder, which is something that I do as well.
Yep, and those ones, those ones that ship with it were actually done by a local photographer. And if anybody goes into the help file, they'll see the photographer's name is credited in there, and it was great. He donated these images to us. They're 4K images, which we scaled down a little bit to 2K.
Extremely useful. And what I really like about having them built into the effect, obviously I've got to put them in the right place on my system, but they're there inside the effect. I don't have to click and try and find them somewhere on my system. And I'm pretty organized, but still that takes a few moments to find it. I can just literally go down the list and I can audition different ones. And if like you say, if you have a particular look that you like, I like really nice scratches, you can just drop it in that folder and you have access to it straight away, which is really nice.
Say, John, a quick question there. When you were creating that ash, if you could just step back to that comp, was it comp 7? Is that where you put the ash in?
Yeah, comp 7, yeah.
Yeah. my question is, did you use a preset for the ash particle sprite?
I did.
Or did
I
you
did.
use
I actually used
built
a
your own?
preset.
A preset.
No, I used a preset which I adjusted. And I mean, particle illusion, it's built on presets. You can go in, and I often like to go in and build a look from a very, very, very simple, default emitter. But 99% of the time, you'll drop a preset in and you'll adjust it. And that's exactly what I did. I've got, if I click on this ash layer, we have a number of presets in here. And I've got the wrong thing. I'm on lens blur. It's got to go into particle illusion. I thought, I don't recognize any of those presets. You see, it says BG dust floaters. That was one of the presets that I added in the previous version, dust floaters. So I used that. I knew that was dust, and I knew it was floating because I named it that way. And I knew that would be a great base for what I wanted. So why go in and build something from scratch when you've got some great presets in here? And it's good to know that 2020.5 has added a bunch of great new presets as well. And I've jumped on board and made a whole bunch. And I know Alan and Peter have both added presets in here. And we're going to keep growing this. And we want to make presets that you will use. So we want you to let us know the kind of things that you like. And, it's our job to get them in there so that you can just have them at your fingertips. It's a great question, Peter.
Yeah, one thing there, when you're mentioning being able to create presets fairly easily. I mean, when we pushed this out to beta, there was a big push on the beta group saying, hey, this is what we've got. This is what we're thinking of doing. What do you like? What do you not like? And it was really useful. It was great to have people giving us like really solid feedback. Like Ray, he was brilliant. I mean, he just came in, he's like, hey, this is what I like, this is what I don't, like make some adjustments to this and that. And with that, I'd love to get more beta folks in there. So if anybody is out there watching this and they say, hey, I'd love to be a beta participant, I'd love to get involved in like software development.
Pete
come on
the
in,
beta.
let us know. Come on in.
Yeah. If anybody's interested in joining the Continuum beta, email us at info@boriseffects.com. And we'll get you involved in the beta. 100%. Love it, Pete. Pete's like, we have people. Let's get people.
More's the merrier. Yep.
And there's nothing better than having users in the beta that use it and give us honest feedback.
Yeah.
No,
exactly.
we don't want to go. We don't want feedback. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. And then that's it.
Right.
We want. Like people did with some of the presets we put in. Like, yeah, they're pretty nice, but I wouldn't use them.
Right.
That's gold for us.
Yeah.
So we went straight back and went, okay, let's make some.
That's right.
John,
that's what the software exists for the users, right? It doesn't exist for us.
Yep.
We want this software to be exactly what you guys want it to be. So
you're making Kevin smile now. I know. I know he feels the
Kevin's
same way.
Kevin's been a great contributor over the years. Also,
no, that's what makes it great.
I have no problems telling people what's broken and what doesn't work.
But that's honestly the best. I can't tell you how many times. I say it all the time, but people will tell us like, if somebody says like, oh my God, I love your products. I'm like, that's great. But you know what I really like? I really like when you tell me what you don't like, because that's really where we get to improve the product. Anytime I see BCC fast lens blur, John, I always pop to my head, Bennett over at Ultra Bland. If you guys watch HBO, which I do all the time, the look they're doing right now for all their promos where they rack focus from the HBO logo, BCC lens blur.
Classic look.
So fantastic use of that. Bennett at Ultra Bland, those guys do some amazing stuff. John, that was an amazing presentation, man. You're like Professor Dickinson. I love it. I always learn stuff. You have a great style. And
thanks, man. Look, I feel so lucky to be able to now be in a situation where I can sit and I can build these kind of things and share them. And this is what I've done for so many years, but now this is my job, and I couldn't be happier.
Very cool.
Yeah. John, I got to say, I always learn from watching you show software also. And, it doesn't matter. Like once you're in After Effects and you're showing stuff, I mean, you're so immersed in it, as am I. I mean, I've been dealing with it for over 20 years as well. And, I still learn. I'll watch something. Hey, there's a tip. I didn't know how to do that before. And,
me too. I mean, I've on my Twitter feed, I have a collection for After Effects, and I'm seeing stuff all the time, and I'm adding it to my collections. Like, whoa, I didn't know that.
Totally.
Yeah. There's always some mega brain out there that knows something more than you do.
Yep.
And I mean, the other big advantage now is that, in situations like this, I mean, this was a lesson about particle illusion, but it was also a lesson about, lens blurs and grunge and the 10 to 12 other BCC effects that you used in the same lesson that we all have our 10 go-to effects that we use inside of Continuum, but now it's great to see oh well, here's 10 other ones that with a perfect example of grunge that you maybe didn't even know what it did because you've never used it before. Now you're like, oh, I know where I could use that in this thing I have coming up.
That's a great point, Kevin. Because going in here, I've used particle illusion for a number of years, but never as much as I do now. And I knew that I wanted to do everything that I could in here as much as I could, because you saw I used some default After Effects as well. But I wanted to do as much as I could using particle illusion effects. So I had to go in there and literally search and look and see, what does this do? What does this do? And I was able to, because it's such a huge suite of effects, I was literally able to find everything that I needed. And things that surprised me, things like curl and reflection with the ripple, stuff like that.
Those little extra bits really do it for me. That little slight erosion of the text and wrapping the particles. Like, that's not, to Kevin's point, that's not the way that I think of BCC grunge. I am like a monster truck grunge thinker. I'm like just like slap it on some video, vignette the edges. Like that's really like the way that I think of grunge. So to see you use it for that erode, that's a really beautiful.
You're like that Looney Tunes where something catches fire and goes and instantly turns to ash, right?
No, there's no denying my use of Continuum. Right, when you see it, you'll know it. Very cool.
I'm going to use curl and ripple and all that every time now. That's what I got to not do, right? You got to use effects effectively. I guess it's the best way to put it.
Correct.
Don't just dump them on there and go, "Ooh, I like that."
Yeah, everything should have a purpose, right?
Yeah.
That's like 101. All right, John. Well, thank you so much. Let's give away some prizes.
Nice.
Yeah, John, if you could stop sharing your screen for me.
Yep. 1 sec.
Cool. And let me go ahead and jump into gallery view. Okay, cool. Alan and Vin, any questions from the audience or anything we didn't cover?
A couple of little things. People were asking, for instance, they know it's part of Continuum, but is particle illusion part of the particles unit?
In Continuum?
100%.
Yeah.
So they can get the particles unit and they would get particle illusion.
Well, I would say this. You can buy Continuum as a full product, right? Of the 240 filters, thousands of presets, et cetera, or you could buy just the particles unit with some really amazing particle systems in there, just like absolutely amazing, 2D, 3D, tremendous stuff. Or you can just buy particle illusion as a premium filter.
Premium filter.
Single filter. So multiple ways.
The only thing I like to point out, if anybody is using or interested in buying our units or premium filters, just know that if you have any older versions of Continuum on your system, like suppose you have Continuum 9 installed there, it's going to overwrite those older plugins. So just that's like a little something to be aware of. If you are thinking of upgrading, I always tell people, if you're using older plugins, right, just stay with the full Continuum, or what'll happen is that new particle unit will delete some of your older effects. So that's just one thing to be aware of. But yeah, you can get particle illusion as a premium filter. The particle unit, I agree with Pete, man. It's a deep unit and a great price. So if you're into particles, lots of cool stuff in there.
But good call on mentioning the fact that the newer stuff won't actually live with the older stuff. It's just
only one install, and that goes for that goes for Sapphire as well, right? If you want to just get like the new transitions for 2020, if you have older Sapphire, I always tell people just be aware, you'll lose that. Any other questions out there, Vin and Alan, or does that pretty much do it?
A little bit about compatibility. Does it work with Fusion? Does it work in Resolve? Does it work with Vegas? Those types of things. I think that information is. I can't remember exactly what it is for particle illusion. I know that we've got a compatibility matrix somewhere, but Peter, do you know offhand?
I do. So the answer is, does it work in Resolve? Sure it does. Does it work in Fusion? Not so much right now, but we're working on that. Hopefully we'll be able to resolve that in the not too far term. But
starting with Sapphire. Right? One
starting
at a
with
time.
Sapphire, yeah.
For about the last 2 hours, we talked about Sapphire and
Fusion,
Fusion.
yeah.
So that is but yes, that is coming next.
Well, it was easier when it was standalone, right? I mean, Sapphire always supported Fusion standalone, and Continuum did a little bit, through the AE API, and then I know it was kind of ropey.
I would always tell people download a trial.
Me too.
That is
100%.
really a great. That's take a look at the trial.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, it's a quick uninstall. But that's really that will really tell you.
Yeah. People always want to know, right? Like, do you support the product? And the problem is like with such a deep set of plugins like Continuum and Sapphire, 270 plugins. Like when we say that may not work well, we may be talking about a plugin that you've never even heard of. You know what I mean?
Right.
Versus Fast Film Go is going to work fine, But so it's always like this. I always tell people, download the trial because you may live in an area that is fine, or you may live in an area that has issues. So always best
totally.
to download it for trial. But yes, Continuum supported for Vegas, right? 100%.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And
But obviously, you'd have to go in and use
I would
the
know.
tools.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you have to use the tools that particular application has as well. I've used After Effects tools. So you'd have to go in and get creative and use the tools that in the apps that your app of choice.
I mean, excited just to see Particle Illusion in Media Composer as well. Really blowing the doors right off what you can do in Media Composer. I was a former Avid editor in my life. I always kind of hated that stigma of like, well, you're in the Avid, you can't do graphics. You know what I mean? So now having Continuum inside Avid, you can really kind of blow the doors off what people expect out of Media Composer.
Yeah,
So
that's changing now too, Brian, because I'll be showing lots of stuff in my title studio session.
Yeah.
Tomorrow we're going to show how to look at some motion graphics titles using Media Composer. So, the door's open to motion graphics in there.
And that's the funny thing. And I mean, it's good that John mentioned that, which is, he could do a lesson on Title Studio in After Effects that you could then literally take and transfer directly over to the Media Composer version. And if you know Title Studio, you know Title Studio. So, I mean, and that's what's making it more interesting with, a lot of the effects inside of Continuum and, Sapphire as well, which is you're now getting these more built up modules like Title Studio, like Particle Illusion, like the, Builder in Sapphire that are these, essentially their own applications unto themselves in there that you can get in and create these unbelievable looks and elements and things like that to use again. Like, we when we see lessons like this with the Fire and After Effects, we're like, I expect to be able to create Fire in After Effects. I don't expect to be able to create Fire inside a Media Composer, but now with these tools, we can now suddenly start to get in and create elements that look like that without having to leave the timeline, which for Media Composer editors, once we leave the comfort of our timeline, it's like it's all bets are off. It's like it's the Wild West out there. Do you know what I mean? So being able to stay in Media Composer is always a good thing.
You always want to be able to share your project. Like, when are you ever actually starting and finishing something completely on your own, in a professional environment without having another human touch it? So if you can keep everything in your timeline and live, all the better, right? You don't have to share an After Effects project or share anything that goes along with it. All right, well, let's quit torturing people here, and let's give away some prizes. So first off, we're giving away the Music Bed business subscription, right? Which is stock music for 50 employees, up to 50 employees. It is a $1,200 value. That goes to Don Schaefer, who's watching on YouTube. So congratulations, Don.
Woo! Nice, Don.
Chance Norris on Facebook. Congratulations. You just won a 1 year of Adobe Creative Cloud.
Nice.
So congratulations.
Wow.
Great
That is an
prize.
amazing name, Chance.
Chance Norris.
Chance Norris.
Chance
I
Norris.
bet you can do martial arts.
Or gardening.
Norris. Chance is watching on Facebook, so congratulations to Chance. Kevin Grandison watching on YouTube. Kevin Grandison wins Boris Effects Bundle, Sapphire, Continuum, Mocha Pro, 1 year subscription to all three products. Your choice of host. Congratulations, Kevin, watching on YouTube.
Lucky man.
And we expect to see you build Fire in less than a week. Okay.
That's right.
Okay. I'm not even going to try and pronounce. I'll try and pronounce it. Vens, Calimum Buena Vista on Facebook. I'm going to spell that is VHENZ space CALIMMBUENAVISTA LM. And then Buena Vista on Facebook wins a 1-year subscription to Silhouette. Congratulations. They are watching on Facebook. And Manu Cardon, which is at Manu247 on Twitter, wins a 1-year subscription to Silhouette Paint for Adobe or OFX. Congratulations to all the winners. One thing I want to say to everyone is please be patient with us as we reach out to you to get you your prizes. We have been live all day, so it may take us a while, but we will reach out. We will DM you through whatever you want. If you're on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, Boris Effects will reach out to you. But please be patient with us. It's going to take us probably a couple days to get through this all and to get everyone their prizes. So thank you, John, so much for an amazing presentation. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Vin. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Alan. Once again,
thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, my friends. So we are coming back at 7 o'clock with Brady Betzel. Definitely a must-see. Brady's an amazing, talented finishing editor and artist, and he's going to be showing Continuum as well. That's going to wrap up the day, but we're going to be giving away some awesome prizes, like a 1-year subscription to Team Frame IO, right? So that is amazing. We're giving a $200 to Action VFX. We're giving away an Avid Media Composer subscription and a Core Melt Everything bundle. So in addition to obviously the Boris Effects bundle, Silhouette and Silhouette Paint. So come back at 7 o'clock, and that's going to wrap it up for today. So come back and see us at 7 o'clock with Brady. So thank you so much for everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and congratulations to the winners. Thanks again, John. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Beautiful, beautiful job, John. Thank you.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Cheers.